I stand perfectly still as the familiar words wash over me. My wedding dress ivory satin, with delicate lace at the sleeves catches the light, streaming through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Cathedral. Lucas's hand is warm in mine, steady and sure, as we face Pastor Wilson. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. The traditional phrase hangs in the air. In all my wedding daydreams, this moment passed in peaceful silence. But today, the actual wedding day, a rustle breaks the reverent quiet. My sister Rachel rises from the front pew like a judge about to deliver a sentence. A collective gasp ripples through the church. 200 heads swivel toward her as one. My mother's hand flies to her pearl necklace. My father stares straight ahead, jaw tight, as if by not looking he might make her disappear. Lucas's fingers tighten around Minot in panic but reassurance. When I glance at him, his eyes hold nothing but calm certainty. We both knew this might happen. We just didn't know how it would feel when it did. I object to this marriage. Rachel's voice cuts through the cathedral, precise and cold as a surgeon's scalpel. My sister's making the biggest mistake of her life. The words land like physical blows. Pastor Wilson blinks rapidly, clearly unprepared for someone to actually object at a wedding. In 28 years, I've never once heard of this happening outside of movies. Amanda deserves someone who can provide for her properly. Rachel continues, her voice gaining strength. Not someone who will keep her struggling paycheck to paycheck. Lucas is a waiter. A waiter. She practically spits the word. He serves food at Bernardo's while my sister teaches high school English. They'll never afford a house, never live comfortably, never give their children the opportunities they deserve. Pain flashes through me, but it quickly transforms into something steadier determination. I notice my parents shift in their seats. They won't meet my eyes. They won't stand up for Lucas. Or for me. I glance at Lucas, expecting to see humiliation in his expression. Instead, I find quiet dignity. His shoulders remain square, his gaze level. The corner of his mouth even lifts slightly, as if to say, "This changes nothing. We know the truth." My mind drifts back to that first evening at Bernardo's. I'd been hunched over a stack of student essays, bread pen in hand, when Lucas appeared beside my table with fresh coffee. "Hemingway or Fitzgerald?" he'd asked, nodding toward the novel serving as my paperweight. Hemingway for the prose, Fitzgerald for the heart, I'd answered without thinking. His genuine laugh had made me look up and really see him warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners, strong hands that moved with purpose and grace as he refilled my cup. We talked books between his tables that night and the next, and soon I was timing my grading sessions to coincide with his shifts. When I finally mentioned him to Rachel, her response was immediate. "A teacher and a waiter, how quaint," she'd said, eyebrows arched. "I suppose someone needs to serve the food." That dismissal was just the beginning. At every family gathering, the whispers followed us. "Amanda's settling. She could do so much better. Such a waste of potential." What they didn't know, what I'd promised Lucas, I wouldn't reveal, was that Lucas Reed wasn't just a waiter. He was Lucas Castellano Reed, grandson of Marco Castellano and heir to Chicago's most successful restaurant empire. He worked the floor at his family's smallest establishment to learn every aspect of the business from the ground up. "We'll tell them eventually," Lucas had said one night as we walked along Lake Michigan. "But first, I want to know who sees me early, sees me and who only sees what I can give them." I'd agreed because it made sense. Because I'd watched my parents judge people based on income and status my entire life. Because I wanted my family to love Lucas for who he was, not what he owned. Now, as Rachel's objection hangs in the air between us, Lucas leans close to my ear. "Should we tell her now?" he whispers, his breath warm against my skin. I give a subtle head shake. "Not yet," I whisper back. "Let her finish." Rachel concludes with a dramatic wave of her hand. "Amanda, please, come to your senses before it's too late." Pastor Wilson clears his throat uncomfortably. The silence feels endless as everyone waits for my response. I lift my chin and find my voice. We choose to proceed with our vows. The massive crystal chandelier above the reception hall catches the afternoon light, scattering diamonds of brightness across marble floors, so polished they mirror the guests' movements. I run my finger along the edge of a linen tablecloth that probably costs more than a month of my teacher's salary. Lucas stands beside me, his hand warm against the small of my back, as we greet a steady stream of well-wishers. The heavy doors at the entrance swing open. Rachel appears, 40 minutes late, with Brandon trailing behind like an afterthought. Her stride falters mid-step. Her mouth forms a perfect O as she takes in Castellano Prime's legendary opulence. Breathe, Lucas whispers against my ear. Remember we agreed. I squeeze his hand in response. We've been planning this moment for months. Rachel navigates between tables, her shock poorly concealed behind a brittle smile. When she reaches us, her eyes dart between the ice sculpture centerpiece and the waitstaff in their immaculate black uniforms. This is unexpected, she says, voice pitched to Carrie just between us. How could you possibly afford this place? Isn't there a 2-year waiting list just to book a reservation? I meet her gaze steadily. We have connections. Please, enjoy yourself. A waiter materializes with a tray of champagne. Perrier Jouet Belle Epoque, madame, he offers Rachel. She takes a flute, watching as the pale gold liquid catches the light. Brandon grabs 2. Connections. Rachel repeats flatly, taking a sip before her eyebrows shoot up at the taste. She forces a congratulatory kiss against my cheek before pulling Brandon toward their assigned table. I watch them go, catching fragments of her whispered commentary to relatives seated nearby. Must have maxed out multiple credit cards, showing off what they can't afford. They'll be in debt for decades. The words shouldn't sting after all this time, but they do. I'm transported back to that first dinner when I brought Lucas to meet my family. Rachel had emphasized her recent promotion 3 different times while asking Lucas how many tables he could handle during a shift. Then came the Christmas when she forgot to set a place for him, leaving Lucas standing awkwardly while my father scrambled to find another chair. Last summer's family barbecue when she loudly wondered if Lucas ever planned to find a real career while he was in earshot. A warm tear escapes before I can catch it. Lucas's thumb gently brushes it away. The past is just that, the past, he murmurs, his eyes crinkling at the corners. In about 10 minutes, none of it will matter. I nod, straightening my shoulders as the string quartet transitions to a new piece. Across the room, Rachel stands with Brandon near the bar, gesturing toward us, her voice carrying just enough for me to catch fragments. Put on appearances. School must pay better than I thought. Who pays the price when reality hits? The conversations around us suddenly dim as the reception hall doors swing open with authority. Marco Castellano enters, commanding attention without effort. At 78, he moves with the confidence of a man who has built an empire from nothing. His silver hair, impeccably tailored Italian suit, and discerning eyes mark him as someone accustomed to respect. Staff throughout the venue immediately straighten. The general manager rushes forward with deference that borders on reverence. Marco dismisses him with a gentle pat on the shoulder, his gaze fixed on Lucas. Rachel watches the commotion, confusion evident in the furrow of her brow. When Marco strides directly toward us, arms outstretched, her champagne glass tilts precariously. Mio nipote. Marco embraces Lucas warmly, speaking in rapid Italian before switching to English. Your grandmother would have been so proud today. Grandfather, Lucas responds with equal warmth. I'd like you to meet Amanda's sister, Rachel. Rachel's champagne flute slips from her fingers. It shatters against the marble floor with a crystalline explosion that momentarily silences nearby conversations. A waiter rushes forward with a towel, but she stands frozen, staring at Marco, then Lucas, then me. Grandfather? She repeats, the word barely audible. Marco's keen eyes assess her with the precision of a man who evaluates character as a matter of business survival. Yes, Lucas is my grandson and heir. Surely you knew? The family resemblance is quite strong. Rachel begins, but no more words follow. Marco Castellano. He introduces himself, not offering his hand. owner of the Castellano Restaurant Group, including this establishment and 17 others across the country. His tone is conversational, but his eyes hold steel. She didn't know, Lucas explains quietly. None of Amanda's family did. The whispers spread through the reception like ripples in still water. My parents stand nearby, my mother's hand clutching her necklace. My father looking equal parts stunned and calculating. Next time, Marco says to Rachel, loud enough for those nearby to hear, judge a person by their character, not their job title. My grandson worked every position in our restaurants because I insisted he understand the dignity in all work before he leads those who do it. Rachel's husband suddenly appears at her side, his hand extended toward Marco with naked eagerness. Brandon Sterling, sir. I'm in investment management. Perhaps we could discuss. Perhaps later. Marco cuts him off politely but firmly, turning back to Lucas and me. I believe it's time for your first dance. As we move toward the center of the floor, I glance back at Rachel. She stands rigidly, her perfect makeup unable to hide the crimson flush of humiliation spreading across her cheeks. Brandon whispers urgently in her ear, no doubt strategizing how to leverage this unexpected connection. But it's Lucas who surprises me most. As the music begins, he leans close. I've asked the staff to make sure your sister and her husband are treated with particular attention, he says. After all, they're family now. Even after everything? I ask. Lucas's eyes find Rachel across the room. Even those who challenge us help us grow stronger, he says simply. Maybe she'll learn something today. As we begin to dance, I realize that Lucas has given Rachel something I never could, the chance to recognize her mistakes without losing her dignity completely. The mercy in his choice reveals more about his character than 1,000 Castellano restaurants ever could. I watch Rachel's Instagram post collect likes as if they're precious gems. She poses with Marco Castellano at the grand opening of his newest restaurant, her smile radiant beneath the crystal chandeliers. The caption reads, Family dinner with Chicago's restaurant royalty. Blessed. Castellano family. The irony doesn't escape me. 6 months ago, she publicly humiliated Lucas for being just a waiter. Now her social media brims with Castellano connections. Each photo more staged than the last, Rachel sampling exclusive menu items, offering expert opinions on wine pairings, tagging every Chicago influencer who might notice. Lucas sets a mug of coffee on the side table and glances at my phone. She's changed her LinkedIn profile again. I tap the app and there it is. Rachel Sterling, restaurant industry consultant. No mention of qualifications beyond being related to the Castellanos by marriage. This is the third career pivot in 2 months. I say, the words tasting bitter. Lucas sits beside me, his hand warm on my knee. Marco mentioned Brandon's been dropping our name to potential investors. The thought settles like a stone in my stomach. Brandon Sterling, Rachel's investment banker husband, suddenly claiming special insight into the restaurant industry through his Castellano connections. Are they really using our relationship to drum up business? Even as I ask, I already know the answer. Lucas shrugs. Marco says he's landing meetings with people who wouldn't have returned his call 6 months ago. And just like that, doors swing open for the Sterling couple. Exclusive reservation lists miraculously find space for them. Brandon's investment newsletters now feature insider perspectives on restaurant trends. Their social standing seems to climb with each calculated name drop. A hollow victory, built on shifting sand. The headline glares from my laptop screen. Sterling Investments under federal investigation. I blink, certain I've misread. But the words remain unchanged, black and damning against the white background. My phone buzzes. Rachel's name appears for the 5th time today. I let it go to voicemail just as I've done with the previous calls. Whatever crisis she's manufacturing this time can wait until I finish grading these essays. But the buzzing continues, insistent and desperate. When it finally stops, a text appears. Amanda, please, it's serious. They came to the house. With warrants _ my stomach drops. I call Lucas immediately. By evening, Rachel's name has become Brandon's headline. Sterling Investments under investigation for massive fraud splashes across financial news sites. Photos show federal agents carrying boxes from their lakefront home. In each shot, Rachel stands frozen on the porch, her perfect blowout and designer outfit incongruent with the devastation in her eyes. I call her back. The phone rings and rings. No answer. 3 days later, she finally returns my call. Her voice sounds hollow, stripped of its usual polish. "They've frozen everything," she whispers. "Every account. The cars, the house. They're saying Brandon ran a Ponzi scheme for years. My teacher's salary and Lucas's restaurant empire suddenly feel like grotesque wealth compared to Rachel's free fall from grace." "Do you need a place to stay?" I ask. A bitter laugh crackles through the phone. "My so-called friends won't even take my calls. Funny how quickly they disappear when you can't pick up the dinner tab." The auction sign appears outside Rachel's Chicago lakefront property 2 weeks later. I drive past slowly, wincing at the vultures already circling luxury real estate agents assessing the property's potential, neighbors pretending not to stare. That night, Rachel calls again. Brandon has taken a plea deal that minimizes his own sentence while implicating several associates. Self-preservation to the end. "He didn't even tell me," she says, her voice flat with disbelief. "I found out when his lawyer called to say I should find separate representation." The following afternoon, I find myself parking outside Rachel's nearly empty house. Through the massive windows, I watch movers carrying out the last pieces of furniture. Rachel stands in the center of the echoing living room, arms wrapped around herself as if holding her body together by sheer will. She doesn't notice me watching from the street. I don't go in. 3 weeks later, Rachel stares at her reflection in a budget motel bathroom. I know this because she sends me a photo no filter, no makeup, dark circles shadowing her eyes. The message reads, "I don't know who I am without all of this." Underscore, it's the most honest thing she's ever shared with me. Her texts come in bursts now. She's applied for waitress positions at 12 restaurants. All rejections. "They can smell the entitlement on me," she writes with surprising self-awareness. One manager actually laughed when I couldn't explain how to operate a commercial coffee machine. "I suggest community college courses, training programs, entry-level office work." "With what money?" she responds. "With what skills? I have a useless art history degree and a decade of planning charity galas. No one's hiring for that in this economy." For the first time in her life, Rachel prays. She tells me this during a late-night call, her voice small and unfamiliar. "I actually got on my knees, Amanda. Me. Can you believe it?" I can hear the rain through her motel window. The same storm rattles our penthouse windows across town. "Lucas and I can help," I offer cautiously. "I know," she whispers, "but I need to try everything else first." Everything else runs out exactly 17 days later. The security guard calls up from the lobby at 11:42 p.m. "Mrs. Reed, your sister is here. She's quite insistent." On the security monitor, Rachel stands dripping onto the marble floor. Her hair hangs in wet strings around her face. The designer handbag she carries her last valuable possession sags from the rain. "Should I send her up?" Lucas asks quietly. I hesitate, remembering every cutting remark, every dismissive glance, every moment Rachel made Lucas feel less than. Then I remember the little girl who held my hand on the first day of kindergarten, fierce and protective despite her own fears. "Yes," I finally answer. "Send her up." When we open the door, Rachel crumbles. Not gracefully, not dramatically, but with the complete surrender of someone who has finally hit bottom. Mascara tracks her cheeks. Her shoulders shake with silent sobs. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispers. And despite everything, I open my arms. I fold my hands in my lap, struggling to reconcile the polished marble countertops of our penthouse kitchen with the disheveled woman sitting across from us. Rachel's mascara has left raccoon smudges beneath her eyes. Her designer blouse, the same one she wore when criticizing Lucas's cheap watch at Christmases, wrinkled and spotted with what looks like coffee. "We want to help you," I say, my voice steadier than I feel, but not the way you're asking. Lucas sits beside me, his posture relaxed, but his eyes observant. The confident restaurateur is visible now, not the humble waiter my family dismissed. Rachel keeps glancing at him, as if still adjusting to this reality. What does that mean exactly? Rachel's voice cracks. She clutches her empty teacup like it might anchor her to our granite island. Lucas leans forward. It means we're offering employment, not a handout. Employment? Rachel blinks rapidly. You mean at one of your restaurants? Bernardo's, Lucas specifies. As a waitress. The cup trembles in Rachel's hand. You want me to work as a waitress in your restaurant? Her voice rises on the final word, as if she's just been asked to clean sewers with her bare hands. I meet her eyes directly. You need to understand the dignity in all honest work, Rachel. The same work you mocked at our wedding. Rachel flinches, as if I've slapped her. Good. Some truths should sting. We'll provide a modest efficiency apartment, Lucas adds, his tone businesslike, and a job that will cover your basic expenses if you manage carefully. Rachel sets the cup down with a sharp clink against the saucer. This is revenge, isn't it? Making me serve people after everything. This is opportunity, I interrupt, surprising myself with my firmness. Something most people in your situation wouldn't have. Take it or leave it. The grandfather clock in our foyer ticks loudly in the silence. 1 second. 2, 3. Rachel's shoulders slump as reality settles on them like a physical weight. I don't have a choice, do I? She whispers. Everyone has choices, Lucas responds. This is simply the one we're offering. Rachel wipes away a tear with the back of her hand. When do I start? The efficiency apartment is clean but stark. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige countertops. Rachel stands in the center, arms crossed tightly across her chest, as I hang simple black slacks and white button-downs in the narrow closet. The uniform policy is strict, I explain, smoothing a wrinkle from one of the shirts. Black non-slip shoes, pressed slacks, tucked shirts. Your first paycheck won't come for 2 weeks, so these should get you through. Rachel nods mutely, staring out the single window overlooking the parking lot. The view is a far cry from her former lake-facing terrace. Lucas called Miguel. He's the morning manager. You start tomorrow at 5. 5 in the morning? Rachel's head whips around. Breakfast shift. They do a big business with commuters. I place a simple alarm clock on the bedside table. The bus schedule is on the refrigerator. It's about a 20-minute ride. Rachel sinks onto the edge of the bed. For a moment, I see the sister who used to braid my hair before school, who taught me to ride a bike, before status and appearances consumed her. I don't know how to be a waitress, she says softly. I don't know how to be poor. I sit beside her, leaving space between us. You're not poor, Rachel. You're starting over. There's a difference. She doesn't respond, and I don't push. The silence between us holds years of competition, judgment, and hurt. But beneath it, something else stirs the faint pulse of possibility. The call comes at 9:30 that night. I'm grading papers when Lucas answers, his expression shifting from concern to amusement as he listens. Your sister, he says, handing me the phone. The coffee machine hates me, Rachel announces without preamble, her voice tight with frustration. Miguel made me practice for an hour, and I still can't get the espresso right. And these shoes are already giving me blisters. And I broke a stack of plates during training, which apparently comes out of my first paycheck. I bite back a lecture about how most people learn these skills in high school, not at 32. Did you ask someone to show you again? I shouldn't have to ask. Her voice rises before abruptly dropping. Sorry, that's not fair. This is harder than I thought it would be. Progress, however small. It gets easier, I offer. And Miguel is tough but fair. He said I have the worst hands he's ever seen on a new server. Rachel's laugh holds no humor. He's not wrong. I've got 3 burns already. I think of the younger servers I've watched at Bernardo's, many supporting families, or putting themselves through school, managing complex orders with grace. You'll get better. Just watch the experienced staff. And Rachel? What? Thank the kitchen staff. They can make or break your shift. A long pause. I didn't think of that. Another pause. Amanda, thank you for this chance. I know I don't deserve it. After we hang up, Lucas wraps his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. Still think this will work? He asks. I lean back against his chest, remembering Rachel's face when she realized what work actually entails. It might, I say cautiously. It just might. 2 weeks later, Rachel texts me a photo of her first paycheck. It's modest, barely enough for rent and necessities. But beneath the image is a message that makes me smile. Bought groceries today with money I earned. Weird feeling. Good weird, though. Lucas glances over my shoulder at the message. See the little plant in the background? I look closer and notice a small potted succulent on her windowsill. A tiny green thing adding life to that beige apartment. This might actually be working, Lucas says, echoing my own thoughts from days ago. I nod, hoping he's right. The Rachel who objected at our wedding would never have found satisfaction in a small plant purchased with waitress wages. But perhaps this new Rachel, the one, learning the value of work and the weight of a hard-earned dollar might, find something more valuable than status in the process. Time will tell. For now, a single text and a small green plant are enough to nurture hope. I pause at the entrance of Bernardo's, watching as Rachel glides between tables with a grace I've never seen in her before. 6 months have transformed my sister. Gone is the rigid posture of entitlement. In its place, a woman who moves with purpose through the restaurant, balancing plates along her arm with practiced ease. Third time this week, Mr. Gianelli has requested Rachel's section. Lucas murmurs beside me, his hand warm against the small of my back. Says she remembers exactly how he likes his espresso. The observation settles in my chest like a small victory. We stand unnoticed for a moment longer, observing as Rachel leans down to chat with an elderly couple, her laughter genuine as she jots their order without looking at her pad. Ready? Lucas asks, and I nod, squeezing his hand as we finally make our presence known. Rachel spots us immediately, her eyes brightening. She holds up one finger, a request for patience, rather than dismissal, and delivers steaming plates to a nearby foretop before approaching. Sorry about that, she says, smoothing her black apron. I wasn't expecting you until later. We wrapped up our meeting early, Lucas explains. Thought we'd see if you wanted to grab coffee after your shift. I'd love to, but I promised Maria I'd help with side work so she can make her daughter's recital tonight. Rachel tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, revealing a simplicity I never thought possible in my status-conscious sister. Rain check? I'm still processing this unexpected consideration for a coworker when a commotion erupts near the bar. A woman with carefully highlighted blonde hair and an expertly tailored suit is snapping her fingers at a young server who looks close to tears. That's Veronica, I whisper to Lucas, one of Rachel's old country club friends. Before Lucas can respond, Rachel is already moving, positioning herself between the flustered new server and Veronica with subtle authority. I'll take care of this table, Emma, she says quietly to the girl before turning to face her former friend. I edge closer to hear the exchange. Rachel Sterling, Veronica's voice drips with manufactured surprise. I almost didn't recognize you in that uniform. My sister doesn't flinch. It's Rachel Collins now. I went back to my maiden name. Her voice remains steady, professional. What can I get for you today, Veronica? I'm actually meeting the Prestons for lunch. You remember Greg Preston? His investment firm is simply thriving. Veronica's emphasis on the word feels like a deliberate reminder of Brandon's downfall. We'll need your best table, of course. Of course, Rachel responds with a smile that seems genuine despite everything. Emma has already prepared the corner booth with a view of the garden. Would you like to start with sparkling water while you wait for your party? I hold my breath, waiting for the cutting remark, the deliberate attempt to put Rachel in her place. It comes swiftly. How the mighty have fallen, Veronica says, voice lowered but clearly intended to carry. From hosting charity galas to asking if I want still or sparkling. Does it sting, Rachel? Serving people who used to be your equals? Lucas shifts beside me, ready to intervene, but I place a restraining hand on his arm. Wait, I whisper. Rachel straightens her shoulders, something flashing in her eyes that isn't anger but something steadier dignity. Actually, Veronica, she says quietly, I've discovered there's honor in serving others well. Something I never understood when I was too busy judging everyone around me. She gestures toward the booth. Your table is ready whenever you are. Veronica's mouth opens slightly, clearly unprepared for this response. The gentleman at the neighboring table, who I recognize as Judge Emmett from the circuit court, catches Rachel's eye with an approving nod. Lucas and I watch as Rachel continues her shift, unfazed by Veronica's presence. When we finally leave, promising to connect later, I notice Judge Emmett discreetly leaving his table. The tip he places under his coffee cup catches the light I glimpse, several large bills folded neatly together. Christmas Eve transforms our penthouse into something from a Norman Rockwell painting, pine garlands winding up banisters. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg wafting from the kitchen where Rachel and I stand shoulder to shoulder, rolling out pie dough like we haven't done since we were children. Remember when Mom taught us to crimp the edges? Rachel asks, her fingers expertly forming perfect scallops along the crust. You always made yours look like little hearts. And you always made yours mathematically perfect? I laugh, noticing how easily we've fallen into rhythm together, a synchronicity I thought we'd lost forever. Rachel's hands pause in their work. I was awful to you, she says suddenly, voice not just at the wedding, always. I set down my rolling pin, flour dusting my hands as I turn toward her. Rachel. No, please let me finish. Her eyes meet mine, unguarded in a way I've never seen. I made everything a competition. Your accomplishments, your relationships. I was so focused on appearing successful that I never learned what success actually meant. The confession hangs between us, years of tension releasing like a long-held breath. I reach across the floury countertop and take her hand in mine. We were raised to value the wrong things, I say softly. But you figured it out sooner, Rachel whispers, tears brimming. You saw Lucas for who he really was. The sound of Lucas clearing his throat interrupts us. He stands in the doorway, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face as he takes in our flour-dusted appearances and clasped hands. Grandfather just arrived, he says, and the timing seems perfect. Christmas dinner glows with candlelight and conversation. Marco Castellano tells stories of his childhood in Italy, while we pass dishes family-style around the table. The elegant simplicity feels right more authentic than all the formal holiday dinners of our childhood. When the dessert plates are cleared, Rachel stands, her fingers nervously folding her napkin. The room quiets as she finds her voice. I need to say something, she begins, her eyes moving from face to face before settling on Lucas. I judged you without knowing you. I valued status over character. I objected to your marriage because I couldn't see past my own shallow definitions of success. Her voice breaks, but she steadies herself. I was wrong about everything that matters. Across the table, Marco Castellano nods slowly, the patriarch's approval warming the room as effectively as the crackling fire in the hearth. Lucas reaches for my hand under the table, and I feel the gentle squeeze that has become our private language, a reminder that even painful journeys can lead to unexpected grace. I watch Rachel from across the dining room, pride swelling in my chest despite our complicated history. She moves with confident efficiency between tables, her manager's blazer crisp over a simple black dress. Gone is the artificial smile she once wore at country club functions, replaced by something genuine that reaches her eyes. Table 7 needs more time with the wine list, she tells a newer server, her hand resting briefly on the young woman's shoulder. And Mr. Castellano prefers the Barolo decanted for at least 30 minutes. The server nods gratefully and hurries away. Rachel handles a mix-up with a reservation next, diffusing the situation with a calm authority that has the hostess visibly relieved. I nudge Lucas beside me. Look at her, I whisper. Remember when she couldn't carry 3 plates without disaster? Lucas's fingers intertwine with mine, his wedding band cool against my skin. She's earned every bit of this, he says. From his corner table, Marco observes everything with the watchful eyes of a man who built an empire from a single storefront. When a sommelier hesitates over a wine pairing, Marco doesn't intervene, simply nods toward Rachel. His trust in her judgment speaks volumes. When the dinner rush subsides, Lucas catches Rachel's eye and gestures toward the office. Curiosity flickers across her face as she hands her tablet to the assistant manager. "You're glowing," she says when she joins us, eyes dropping to my slightly rounded belly. "Both of you. What's this impromptu meeting about?" Lucas pulls out a chair for me before taking his own seat. The office smells of leather and the faint citrus of Rachel's organized filing system. One wall displays framed photos: Rachel with her restaurant team, our family at Christmas, Marco teaching Rachel how to properly taste olive oil. "We have news," Lucas says, sliding a leather portfolio across the desk. Rachel raises an eyebrow, her fingers hesitant as she lifts the cover. I watch her scan the first page, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. River North location. Modern Italian fusion concept. Managing partner. She looks up, voice barely audible. "You want me to be the managing partner?" "Not want," I correct gently. "Need. The concept needs someone who understands both worlds' fine dining standards with accessibility." Lucas leans forward. "You've earned this, Rachel. Not because you're family, but because you're qualified." She turns the page to architectural renderings of space flooded with natural light. An open kitchen, walls of windows facing the Chicago River. "I don't know what to say," she whispers, fingers tracing the blueprint. "Say yes," Lucas suggests. "Marco's already approved the business plan. We break ground next month." 3 weeks later, Rachel leads us through the empty restaurant space, her voice animated as she describes her vision. Sunlight streams through dust-covered windows, painting golden rectangles on concrete floors. "We'll have the bar here," she says, gesturing toward the river view. "And I want the kitchen visible, no pretension, total transparency." She stops beside a wall near the planned entrance. "I'm going to frame my first server's apron and hang it right here, to remind me and everyone who works for me that there's honor in every position." I grasp Lucas's hand tighter as Rachel continues through the space, describing interview questions designed to test character alongside experience. "Marco will sit here on opening night," she declares, standing at the best table, "and I'll serve him myself." 6 months later, Rachel stands before a community college hospitality class, her restaurant thriving beyond projections. The students lean forward as she speaks on chances and the danger of pride. "I had to lose everything I thought mattered to gain what truly does," she tells them. That evening, Lucas and I bring our newborn daughter to visit the bustling restaurant. Rachel excuses herself from the kitchen to hold her niece, whispers something in the baby's ear as she rocks her gently. "What did you tell her?" I ask. Rachel smiles, wisdom in her eyes that wasn't there a year ago. "I told her that her worth isn't what she owns, but who she is.